Welcome back then folks to the second Forza Horizon 5 special projects build out of 3 this week. Of course the final one will be coming on Friday. This time it's a pretty obvious build to do, given that as with some other vehicles in Forza they literally give you the visual parts to do this, like branded and everything. A Brabus 800 version of the Mercedes E63 S AMG. Very, very potent car. Comes with all-wheel drive as standard, so it's properly quick already. The only downside to this one, as some of you will probably already know immediately, is this is one of those awkward cars to get because you can't buy it in the auto show. It is like a backstage pass unicorn kind of car, so for those who don't have it, you're not really going to be able to do this until you get, of course, the vehicle. Eventually it will probably come around to the backstage passes, at least at the time of releasing this video, but you can get it through occasionally other means like seasonal events, which is why, well, one of the reasons why I always make sure that I get all of those cars from the seasonals. Now in terms of the replica, visually speaking, all I've done is change the colour. Now it looks like I've basically just got a black Mercedes, but the reality is I've done kind of a two-tone version, and as you can kind of see if I look around the car, it's obviously black, but it has a very deep, like a metallic grey undertone, almost like a colour shift between grey and black, which I think really suits the car. So if you do want this, I've also obviously got carbon wheels and brighter red calipers on the brakes, so that proper Brabus kind of visual style. So if you do want to get this particular visual that I've done for it, of course on screen is both the tune code, or was both the tune code and the livery code, if you just want to grab it as is straight onto your car. As you can see, it's S1 class, 835 points. Of course, with special projects, these replicas and, for the most part, fictional builds don't tend to be built to the absolute limit of a class. So if you are deciding to build a vehicle that just looks the part but has totally different performance, then you'll probably want to use this video and change some things, whereas if you just want the replica of the car just to drive around for fun and maybe use for racing, then of course you could just download it to get it quicker if you want to. Now, as far as the motor swaps and drivetrain swaps, you don't need to do any of that. I am trying to stick to the real world specs, or at least a close approximation of what the real ones are, which is up around 780 horsepower, so it's a properly monstrous machine. In terms of weight, of course, it's a bit harder to get the weight exactly correct, and sometimes it's harder to find the weight online anyway. As far as the visuals, of course, you want the full Brabus kit, which is the front bumper, the rear wing as well, the rear bumper, and the wheels. Well, I guess you could say the wheels aren't really a full-on replica, but I've gone for, if we jump through, these ADV1s, which look pretty close, I would say, to the real car's rims. I've also sized them up by 1 to 21-inch front and rear. For the tyres, I've bumped it up a little bit to semi-slicks. You don't necessarily have to, but I mean, at least that's a decent amount into S1 class rather than just down at 813 where it's barely in there at all. So you've got to give the car some kind of advantage where you can. As far as the tyres, we've gone for just a little bit wider, 275s on the front and 305s on the back. I've opted not to bother doing the track width on this one because it looks pretty much as it should already. Of course, if you're doing it yourself, there's no reason why you can't do that. I've just opted not to. As far as the power, to jump it up to just under 770, or just under 780 I should say, 779, you want your race intake, the race fuel system, the race ignition. You don't need the valves, you don't need the cams. For the exhaust, we do have the race one as well, which of course changes the sound as well. As far as even displacement, you don't need that. You don't need the pistons. A little bit of an upgrade for the turbo to the racing one. I haven't got the anti-lag though. I guess you could do that if you want to, but again, it's not entirely appropriate to the car. As far as the flywheel, we've gone for that one. Then for the oil and cooling and for the intake, those are upgraded. Now, as far as the suspension, or the handling side of things, the brakes, they look modified because they're so big on there anyway, but they're actually the standard brakes. As far as the springs, we've just put it on sport, so it's a little bit lower, a little bit stiffer. As far as anti-roll, I haven't bothered with those. Of course, no weight reduction. You can see it's not far off 2.1 tonne. No change on the anti-roll or roll cage. And then finally for the drivetrain, we have nothing on the clutch, nothing on the drivetrain, nothing for the transmission either, and then for the diff I've gone for the racing one. So of course if you do use the code, just to search this up, you can get everything which I just showed you straight on the car, and it will be sorted, job done. If, on the other hand, you want to do it yourself, then of course you're going to need some tuning, and that is where this comes in. So 2.5 seconds to 60 sounds absolutely ridiculous for a car like this, but the reality is the real thing can actually do 0 to 60 in about or just under 3 seconds. So it really is bonkers quick anyway. 229 miles an hour. I would imagine the real car can probably do something like that if you were to completely remove the limiter. It wouldn't be the first time that they've got a Brabus rocket kind of machine to do stupid high speeds. As far as the gearing, of course, you've got what you've already got because we didn't modify that. And as far as most of this, you don't really need to worry about any of it. As far as the diff, I've opted for 30% for acceleration and decel and a 60% centre split, which sounds like it might be a bit too heavy. Personally, I think it feels just right for this car, but of course you could come back and change that if you want to. So all of that is done. Now, of course, we will jump out into, as always, an event so that you can actually see what this car is like in practice. Now, for those who haven't got the car yet, of course, all of this will be relative because you haven't driven it to begin with, and you don't have much of a point of reference, but it's a big old 2-ton Mercedes with all-wheel drive and nearly 800 horsepower. So what you're expecting is pretty much exactly what you get, an absolute monster. But it is a very forgiving monster, actually, in, funnily enough, kind of a similar way to the Monaro VXR 500, which I did on Monday. This is also a fairly beginner-friendly build. The only thing which isn't beginner-friendly about the car is how hard it is to get it, compared to most other vehicles that you can just purchase, which is such a bummer, really. You should be able to just buy certain cars like this. I get the system of having those unicorns, and I do agree with it. I think it's a cool idea, but some of them just don't make sense. You know, a Bentley Turbo R, Aston Martin Lagonda, yes, those should be in there. But newer cars like this, though, I don't know about that, at least for me. Regardless, though, if you do already have the car, of course, if you want to replicate a Brabus, then here you go. You got the visuals, you got the tuning, and now you can just take it out, drive it around, have some fun, and maybe win some races with it. So, of course, check out the playlist. It's right below in the video description for all of my builds and really all of my content in general in Forza Horizon 5. Of course, stick around on Friday for the final special projects build for Forza Horizon 5 this week. So I'll see you then. Check out Monday's one as well if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.